Hey, everybody. We are back for another Live and Learn. I love Thursdays when I get to talk to our Mama members and I get to learn some things. Today, the tables are turned though. And today it's just going to be a little bit different than it normally is. Isn't it, Heidi?
Yes, I'm going to be interviewing you.
The tables are turned. I love it. Welcome, Heidi. Heidi is a Mama member. She's in the group. She's been in the group for a little while. Heidi is an artist. I see you've got some of your artsy stuff there behind you.
Yes, I straightened up as much as I could in my messy workroom here, but it is what it is. So,
hey, every artist has a messy workroom. Yes. I'm a musician, and our music room not clean. Just is what it is.
Guitars and chords everywhere, right?
Yeah, amongst other things, yes. All right, so let's hit it. What are we talking about today, Heidi?
So this question occurred to me a little while ago. I've had this sort of, thought bubble, hanging over my head for a little bit. And I thought, you know what, these would be really good questions to ask Katie. And so I reached out to you guys and I said, hey, would you be interested in being interviewed for a Live and Learn? And we are going to be talking about podcasting.
Yay! One of my passions, really and truly.
I have so many questions. This is something I have a tendency to kind of like leap before I look. So I'm trying to, kind of do my due diligence and stuff, but I've been interested in doing a podcast. I have a very curious nature, and I like to talk to people and ask them about things. And I thought, well, before I dive into something as sort of, podcasting is serious business, or can be. And I just figured it would be good to learn from the pros. So to see what you have to say.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that you look at me as that. First and foremost.
So how did you get started? What was the thing? What was the impetus that made you say, I think this needs to be a podcast? And you have more than one. I know you have two. Do you have more than two?
Just two at the moment.
Which one was your first one?
So that's a really good question, actually, because back in 2007, when I first got my real estate license, I had actually started a podcast way back then. And that was before like podcasting was cool. I remember I used a program called Podbean to get that distributed to the podcast platforms. And that was just about real estate, kind of what was going on. I was super new to the business though, so it fizzled out. It didn't last. Fast forward several years, I decided to get back into it again. I just love it. I love being on the mic. I'm a musician. I've, been on stage for a good chunk of my life. And I just love learning more about people and, sharing things that I've learned and things like that. And so several years later, decided to, even, after MOMnation had been born and we were kind of doing our thing here, decided to do it didn't begin as From the Heart podcast. It actually started out as, it was called Love Tank. And we just talked about, From the Heart, which is the podcast that we have now for MOMnation. I think we're in our 6th season, actually. Is just about, inspirational stories or, women related topics. We dive pretty deep into things like that. And that's really how it started. It's always kind of been that same sort of in that same vein. It's just as I've grown and as I've learned more, it's sort of come with me. So From the Heart has been around for quite some time. Again, like I said, 6 seasons, but it wasn't always that name. We've gone through a couple of name changes since. When that was born, I decided that, hey, I know a lot more about real estate now than I did when I first got into the business. So why not partner up with my husband? My husband and I work together 10 years now. We've been working together in the real estate world. And it's cool that we could probably do a whole episode on that.
There you go. Content right there.
Yeah, no kidding. We probably could. But we decided to do a real estate podcast, and that's twice a month as well, just like From the Heart is. Once a month, we do a market update, very hyper local, and that gets a lot of traction. A lot of people really like that. They like to watch the market, their numbers, things like that. So we talk about that, tips for buyers and sellers as pertaining to the current market conditions. And then on our off weeks, we just do another, real estate topic. Today, actually, we recorded our podcast. It drops tomorrow, my husband and I's podcast. And we recorded it on, well, this might be something that would interest you, actually. Moving your aging parents in with you. So tips and tricks, like things to do to prepare and things to consider. So those are basically the two that I do now. And that's the typical content on them.
Awesome. And so when you first started out, you're obviously a natural behind the mic. You feel very comfortable. You have a really natural presentation. You don't seem nervous at all. I have a YouTube channel also, and I find myself when I'm editing my videos, I spend 90% of my editing time editing out, all of these. And I have a theater background. So these are things that were like beaten out of me in theater. And I've just sort of like gained all of these bad habits back. So when you're doing your podcast, it seems to me that you're kind of like one and done. You do the recording and you post it. Do you have to do a lot of editing?
Never. I have never edited an episode. I have never stopped in between an episode and said, oh, geez, that wasn't good. Let's scrap it and start over. I'm one and done. I'll sit down, I'll do the whole episode in its entirety, and then I don't touch it. The only thing that gets edited is the beginning. Like maybe if I hit the record button and I'm fiddling with my hair or something and I haven't even started the show, that will be edited. And, we put a little kind of graphic at the beginning just to introduce the show. But that's it. Yeah, I'm one and done.
Yeah, so that makes it a lot quicker and easier too for publishing, because you also publish your podcast episodes to YouTube as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we do the video version. We also record the audio version at the same time, and we send them to different platforms. So the video version goes on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then the audio gets fed through our, gosh, I can't even remember the name of it off the top of my head. My staff would know. It gets pushed to like iTunes and Google Podcasts and, all of those. So you have to have like a hosting, is what I'm trying to say. So we have a hosting website, then the audio gets uploaded into there, and then it pushes it out to those platforms.
So you just send an audio file to the podcast hosting site.
Correct. Yeah, we upload it into there, and it's got a little graphic so that when you're on iTunes, the little picture that comes up, and then it's a couple of lines about the episode. Maybe the name of the episode is also on there. I don't exactly remember.
So it doesn't take too much. And is there a different graphic for each episode, or do you keep just like a regular title graphic for every episode?
They're both different. So From the Heart will typically have, it's the same graphic, but we'll have a picture of our guest on each individual episode so that the thumbnail shows a picture of our guest. And of course, it's Sherry and I on there always, we're constants. And then we have like along the bottom what the title is. Mm-hmm. And on Real, it stands for Real Estate and Life, REAL. That's the one that I do with my husband. I want to say we do the same thing. My staff handles that. God love them. Without them, I would not be able to do the fun part. And that's all that I do, to be honest. I do the recording and the interviewing, and I'm on the show. And then once it's done, I ship it off and my staff handles the rest. They are the true rock stars, to be honest.
So I have a question about equipment then. Since you come from a recording background, you probably already might have had some equipment at home. Is there like if somebody was starting out from scratch and I don't have microphones. I do have one microphone for video recording, but I suppose it could be good enough for doing a podcast too. But if you were like telling somebody, this is like the essential thing that you need, but you don't, you could do all this stuff after you get going and you learn more about it and everything like that. But what do you just need? A microphone?
Yeah, sound is super important. I mean, think about when you're listening to podcasts or when you're listening to, videos on YouTube and things like that, when it's hard to hear the person or when the person that they're interviewing or talking with is so much louder than they are. I think that's kind of annoying, right? So I found it early on important to have a mic. This is the mic that I use. Um, I don't think it's overly expensive. Honestly, it was my husband's, so I don't even know what he paid for it. It's probably 10 years old. And so I know that they still make this mic because I bought this thing, which helps with your P's so that it doesn't make that. I'm trying to think of what the name of this thing is.
Yeah, when you see the little circle ones, it's called a pop filter. So that
yeah,
foam thing kind of does the same thing, right?
Does the same thing. And I just had to recently replace it. See how it's nice and new and clean. So I do know that they still make this mic. You can tell sometimes when I forget to plug my mic in, like that happened to me on the podcast earlier this week from the heart. I was a little discombobulated and forgot to plug in my mic. So you could hear the difference in my audio, and it just makes such a big difference when you've got the mic, and it kind of, helps to capture your voice and not necessarily what's going on in outside of your voice, like in the rest of the room, house, whatever. Right. And I just have a camera that I got on Amazon. I want to say probably bought it for $40 or so. Just kind of looked through reviews and found something that would work with my computer. And it actually offers a little light ring on it. So that's kind of cool. So if you're in an area where you don't have as much light, I typically film in my office. I'm in my office right now. What you don't see is in front of me is just all windows. So I'm facing the window, which is why the light is pretty decent in here. So I don't use the light ring. But if you're in a darker room, don't have the whole wall of windows in front of you, then I would suggest getting either a light ring. You've seen them, right? Like,
yep.
You see them on Instagram.
They even have them at Home Depot now. For some reason. I saw one at Home Depot. So
yeah, this particular camera has it in it. Let me see. I can turn it on. Oop, I moved it. But see how it changed? Can you see? And it gets brighter. See?
Yeah.
But I don't use it because the windows. So.
Yeah, so to tell the difference for the audience, Katie's using professional equipment. You've got your microphone, you've got your filter on your microphone, you've got your camera. It's like a web camera.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Yeah. And I'm using just the native microphone on my MacBook Air and the onboard camera on my computer. I have light coming in from this side from a window. I don't have my computer. I don't have it set up like you do where I'm facing the window because I have stuff behind me that's not too camera friendly. So
that's a thing too.
Yeah, so I just have it at an angle. I think if I, wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this, I'd probably want to set up somewhere in my house that is set up to have like a nice presentation.
Yeah. And you can get really fancy. My husband and I have been talking about making a little corner of one of our guest rooms, like into a sort of a little podcast area with, with the mics on the stands and the headphones and be looking all cool, but you don't need that.
Yeah, I think you can just, like anything else, I think you can just go crazy if you let yourself, but I think it's important to kind of like take baby steps at first and just make sure it's something that you really want to do.
Totally agree. Get started. And, who cares if your audio is not perfect? I mean, at first, as you're getting used to it, obviously audio is important because, again, just put yourself in the shoes of the person that's listening. It gets annoying when the audio is too low or, too loud or whatever. But my suggestion is just to dive in and just to start doing it. And, you probably, depending on what your network's like or what your follower count is like now, you may not have a whole lot of people that are watching you anyway. So who cares? Like, just dive in and get it started.
Right. Make mistakes as you go. And
yeah. I mean, people would rather see that. Wouldn't you rather see, me real and normal and human and maybe I make a mistake, maybe I say something silly or whatever, like who cares? Like, isn't that more entertaining than sitting here all perfect and everything I say is perfect and like so boring?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What would you say is the biggest, to me, I think the biggest challenge for me is going to be, I do not have a regular set schedule. So it's really hard for me to be like on the dot consistent with things. So that's something that I need to work on in order to kind of work towards, putting out regular content and being consistent and things like that. What would you say your biggest challenge is with producing these podcasts?
So I'm going to I'll get to that question real quick, but I want to speak to what you were talking about in terms of schedule. And my suggestion is because, I sort of struggled with that in the beginning too. And obviously you want to keep your content coming out consistently, especially if it's a podcast, because people are expecting, if they're used to hearing from you once a week or getting a new show once a week or once a month or whatever, like you want to continue that because that's the expectation, right? So you want to feed that. And I have done a few shows, like say I'm going on vacation and I know that one of the shows needs to post while I'm on vacation because that's the schedule, then I'll pre-record a couple of shows. And then that way they're in the queue, they're ready to go, they get dropped when they're supposed to drop. So that might be beneficial to you, and those of you out there that have kind of not a so set schedule, maybe it changes on a daily basis. Perhaps you pick one day a month and you just bang out a couple of shows. And then that way you're good, throw it in the queue and, you can go from there. What has been my biggest challenge? Well, there's a few, but I would say the biggest one is finding guests that are cool with being on camera and that are okay with doing things like I do it, where it's just one and done. A lot of times, like for Live and Learns, we're live, like this is happening now, people, you know what I mean? And and if I say something weird, well, it's out there. It's you guys have heard it. I find that people are kind of get camera shy. And so where I've had fantastic guests, all of my guests have been amazing. I have had people that have, at the last minute just kind of chickened out and been like, I wanted to do it, but sorry, I can't do it. So I would say that lining up guests that are, really sort of have that hunger and that want to be on camera has been the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I'm usually, if I'm in here painting, I'm usually in my pajamas. So I had to actually brush my hair and put some makeup on before we did this because I'm like, well, these people don't want to see me in my jammies. So. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And I think part of the reason that I'm interested in doing it myself is that I'm such a fan of podcasts. I listen to them all the time. And I listen to such a different variety of them. Like I love informational podcasts. I love the From the Heart podcast. When I first time I saw it, I was like, because I'm not really into super sensitive stuff all the time. I'm just like, whatever. But after I listened to a few episodes, I was like, damn, these girls are getting to me. I just you touch on subjects that people can relate to, even though they don't think it relates to them. It's all. So, I mean, you've got your podcast. I haven't listened to your real estate podcast yet. I probably should, especially especially the market one. And I am interested in the parental living situation thing. But I mean, I've listened to scary podcasts. I've listened to the podcasts about the doctors who are doing horrible things. I've listened to, most of the ones that I listen to are art-based, but I mean, there's just so many out there. And I don't think that the market I don't think it's saturated at all. I think that it's still wide open.
I agree with you 100%. There are just clearly so many things to talk about.
Yeah, a lot. So, do you have any questions for me?
No. Well, are we done? Are you done?
Oh, I have lots of questions. I don't know what your time limit is. I wasn't sure if we had just half an hour or.
Yeah, usually this Live and Learn's about 20 minutes, 30. I mean, that's fine with me. So yeah, if you've got more, hit me with them, sister.
All right. So I was going to ask you, how do you do it all? I mean, you've got 2 podcasts, you've got the 2 Facebook groups, you're a real estate agent, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're doing like all these, events and activities for all the people in the mom groups, the nights at the shooting range, I think we're doing bunko tonight. There's like, how, like, do you have like a little like clone of yourself running around like with a checklist?
Almost. It took a while, honestly. I don't do as much myself as I used to in the beginning. So in the beginning, when I started doing these things and kind of adding more and adding more, I was wearing all the hats, right? Doing all the things. You can't run like that for too long without driving yourself totally crazy and without your family being like, oh, who are you? And that wasn't my goal. That's not something I want to do. My family's super important to me, and I wildly protect the time with them, just because, first and foremost, obviously I love them and enjoy that time with them, but I don't want to be sitting here 20 years later still on my podcast wondering how the hell my kid grew up under my nose and I missed all that.
Right.
And so really early on, I started to find help. So I have a lot of help, and my staff is, I get the tissues, like, makes me tear up because they're so incredibly loyal. They're so incredibly passionate and so incredibly good at what they do. On the real estate side, I do have a team. I do work with my husband. So we need the tissues. So we both, we both run the team. We kind of wear different hats, and we have an amazing staff. I've got five agents, 6 agents on the team. And then our staff is another 5 admin, for supporting staff. So they're doing all the back end stuff. They're doing the graphics. They're getting the stuff loaded into the different platforms that we need it loaded into. They're making the social media posts. A lot of times it's not me that's doing Team EvoAZ posts or MOMnation page posts. A lot of times that's the staff. I handle my own personal Facebook, that's it really, because, our YouTube and our Instagram are just MOMnation and Team Evo. I don't have my own personal Instagram or YouTube. So the staff is really maintaining that, making sure everything's organized appropriately and all of the information is there for you guys. In terms of our team, it's incredible. We are a small team, and for the amount of business that we do, we're like a well-oiled machine. Everybody has a certain job that they do, a certain hat that they wear. We work together extraordinarily well. I couldn't ask for a better team.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So help, staff. My husband is an incredible human. He not only is really, really helpful in, the whole work, we call him the utility. He has the utility position because he can do anything. He's been in the business 18 years. He's got an amazing amount of experience, an amazing amount of closings under his belt. He knows what he's doing, and he can do everything. And so wherever it is that we need him, he fits in. And so that's very helpful and just super huge support for me. On the domestic side, he's the same. He's just a wonderful human. Has it always been like that? No. We went through a couple of patches where we really needed to figure out, okay, you're better at this than I am. Like, I'm not a cook. I don't do food. I don't get it. I don't even know how to navigate through a grocery store. Like, sorry, it's just not my bag. And he's very passionate about that. He likes to cook. He likes to do the grocery shopping. So that's his job. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of have figured out over the years. We've been married 9 years, so we have figured out over the years who is better at what and who is more willing to do what. And we've kind of split things that way. But it takes a lot of communication. It's not like he just walked through the door and he knows exactly what to do. We had to work through that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good when you can work well together as a team. My husband and I are kind of like that too. We just kind of like fill each other's gaps, so.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And it's hard work. But when you really, really know each other, it's like, just like the team. It's a well-oiled machine. Our household runs very, very smoothly.
Well, you do a good job, and
Thank you.
you really do a great job, kind of as a mama hen to all of us in the Facebook group, and sort of nurturing these relationships, and feeding, I would say, the women around you with really, I don't want to say useful information, but I think it's like you're kind of like a nurturer. You're giving people things that they don't even know that they need. All this information that you're sharing. So, good on you.
Thank
I'm
you.
surprised, I'm surprised you don't have a communications degree or something.
Oh, no, I actually, it's funny. I actually, out of high school, went to college to become an attorney. I've always wanted to be a trial attorney. And so I started the beginnings of that. And I actually only ended up with an associate's degree, because I don't come from money. So I had to put myself through college. A lot of us I know are in that boat. And so I got a full-time job. I worked at a bank, and I worked as a bank teller to begin with. I just really like numbers and, all of that kind of thing. And I ended up moving up. Now I'm 18, right? And in college, and I ended up moving up the ranks pretty quickly, and became, at 20 years old, I became the manager of 9 bank branches for their like credit card department. What do they call that? Merchant accounts. So I would drive all around the state, come from this weeny teeny little state in New Hampshire. I would drive all around the state and set up motorcycle shops. And those were my favorite because I also have my motorcycle license. So that's what I remember off the top of my head. Toys. But like car dealerships and things like that, I would set them up with their merchant account so that they could accept credit card payments for various things. And I ran that for 9 banks. And it was a pretty intense job for a 20-year-old. And I'm balancing everybody at the end of the day and making sure everybody's accounts are appropriate, and, sending things to Visa and MasterCard and that kind of thing. I think my email is still open. Sorry. Oh, well, it's making noise. And from there, I got into underwriting. So I was a junior underwriter for mortgages. And I'm like 21 years old at that point, right?
Yeesh.
That's when I got the bug. So I got my associate's degree and decided that I wanted to be in mortgage. So I became a lender. And that was about the time that I moved here to Phoenix from New Hampshire, ripe old age of 24, I think I was, just barely. I had just turned 24 and got into lending. From lending, sort of paved the way for me to get my real estate license. So I never ended up going into law. I sometimes wonder if things would have happened differently, and if I would have done that, kind of, who I would be today and where I would be and that kind of thing.
Well, that explains that you were talking the other day about how you were so entranced with the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and that you said you love whenever there's a big trial on TV that you can watch the back and forth. So that explains that.
Yeah.
But I can see you being an attorney and totally killing it. I mean, you definitely have the drive, the skills, and the motivation to do anything you want to do. So,
well, thank you. Miss Vasquez is goals right there. Like Camille Vasquez, have you watched her at all? Mm-mm. You brought up the trial. Of course, I've been watching it.
I just see whatever they put on Instagram, the little clips of, just the little snide comments here and there. It's right. Entertaining.
Well, that's it. I mean, I realize that there's a lot more important things in the world that are going on, but this is my entertainment. I dig it. It's like watching a movie to me.
Yeah, so. that was going to be one of my, segueing into, how you listen to podcasts or interviews or an interviewer. James Lipton famously had the card of 10 questions that he would ask every guest. Do you have a favorite question or set of questions that you ask everyone?
So that is a great question, because not only do I do one take, but I'm unscripted. So when I have a podcast guest, they'll fill out a little form and they'll tell me what their topic is. And they'll give me like a couple of little bullet points of things that they want to talk about. And from that, I'll form, we'll get into conversation. I only look at that form in the beginning. I never take it back out again because I don't need to, because once I'm into a conversation, the questions come to me. I don't know where it comes from. I couldn't tell you. It just happens like that. And that's what I love about it, because it's kind of exciting. I get on and I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see. And I'm usually always pleased at the end.
Yeah, it's funny how it happens organically like that, because I've been sort of looking at my little bullet point list that I sent to you when I filled out the form. And we've basically covered everything that I've had in my list here. So
in conversation, though.
In conversation. Yeah, just organically. Yeah.
And, being like you, I love listening to podcasts and YouTubers and things like that. And I honestly much prefer when it's just in conversation, and it seems like the questions and, stories and things like that come up organically versus, and it's okay to have notes. I mean, I have a few notes every show, but it's more exciting.
Yeah, I think it makes people want to listen longer too. I mean, some of my favorite podcasts are just two people talking to each other about a given subject, and they'll even say at the end, well, that's not what we were going to talk about today, but here it is,
Yeah. Those are my favorites. They're just real, they're raw. And that's, I don't think I would be able to do it working from something that's super strict or, not being able to be fluid. I don't think I'd be able to do it.
Yeah. I don't think I could either. I'm not too much of it. I mean, I like guidelines, but like if you give me like a strict, like, don't do this, you immediately want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I am that person too.
Yeah.
I was probably an interesting child because I would do those things. What? Let me do it more.
Yeah. Little rebellious.
Yeah. Who, me? No, you couldn't tell, could you? So we are through our questions. Well, this has been awesome. And I really, really appreciate this. You're the second person, that has ever interviewed me. I had an interview on MOMnation Live years and years ago, just kind of talking about the beginnings of the group and what was the vision and how did it get to what it is now, which is a crazy difference from what it started. So thank you, because I was not only flattered, but super excited. I so appreciate your time today and for doing this. Tell us just before we go, tell us just a little bit about you and your art and where can we find you and what makes Heidi's Cricket Chirp?
Oh gosh. Well, I am all about process. That's kind of what I want my podcast to be about. Is I want to ask, kind of like we did today, I want to ask people, how did you do this? How do you make something? How does this work? My son and I used to geek out on that show. It was on the Learning Channel called How It's Made. And they would just go into factories and show you like how they make baby buggies or whatever they make. And I love seeing like the behind the scenes, like how things are done. I'm an artist. I paint. I paint with acrylic on canvas. I also do watercolor on paper. I'm also a certified art teacher. And I would love to sort of figure out a way to get that out to people who want to be creative or who feel like a creative bug, but they just don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. And so that's I'm trying to figure out my path as I go along. So, but yeah, that's me. And I'm at Heidi Horch on Instagram. It's HeidHorch.
Awesome. Well, good luck to you. Let me know when you launch your podcast, because I will be there in support. Absolutely. It's something I definitely want to check out and follow. And good luck. And if there's anything that I can do to help support you in the interim, definitely let me know.
Thank you so much, Katie. And I really appreciate your time.
Awesome, Heidi. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.